Hey, CEO, can I just say, if your business has been feeling harder than it should lately, the problem might not be your strategy. It might be clutter. Not the kind you see on your desk, but the kind that builds quietly in your calendar, in your thoughts, and in your digital spaces. So let me ask you, if I looked at your calendar, your thoughts, and your inbox right now, would I find clarity or clutter? Because business clutter rarely looks like a mess on your desk. It usually looks more like busyness, aka hamster wheel effort with little results to show for it. Have you been feeling that lately? That's why today we're going to do a quick CEO Clutter Checkup to see if hidden clutter might be stealing your focus, your time, and your results. So let's dive in. All right, before we get started, can I ask you something personal? Do you have a drawer in your house that's a little hard to close? You know the one, that junk drawer. You push it shut and it kind of pops back open again. Or maybe it's a closet door that you close really fast so nothing falls out. Or that storage space where every time you need something, you have to pull half the boxes out just to find it. And by the time you're done, you don't have the energy or the time to organize it. So you just shove everything back in and say, I'll deal with it another day. That kind of clutter is obvious. And the cost becomes obvious over time too. You waste time looking for things. You avoid opening certain spaces. You feel very triggered every time you just walk past it and think about it. And eventually, you finally admit something needs to be cleared out. But here's the interesting thing. When clutter builds in our business, it's often much harder to see. Nothing falls out when you open your laptop. No drawer refuses to close. Instead, that kind of clutter shows up quietly. You sit down to work, and within about 3 minutes, you already feel scattered. You check your calendar and it's full, but you're not quite sure what actually matters that day. You open your inbox and there are dozens of messages waiting. You start one task, then another idea pops in your mind, then you remember something you forgot to do yesterday, and suddenly you're busy, but you're not moving forward. If that feels familiar, you're not alone. And today, I want to talk about something that quietly creeps into many businesses without us realizing it: clutter. Not just the physical clutter, although that may be true, but the kind that builds up in your calendar, your thoughts, and your digital spaces. Because when those places become cluttered, it becomes incredibly difficult to steward your business well. So perhaps it's time for a little spring clean reset for you as a CEO, which is why this episode is going to function a little bit like a CEO Clutter Checkup. And I'm going to walk you through 3 areas where clutter tends to quietly build up inside a business. Along the way, I'm going to ask you a few simple questions to help you evaluate where clutter might be stealing your focus, your bandwidth, and your results. And if along the way you discover that things feel a little cluttered right now, or you already know you desperately need help, then good news. That's exactly why I'm hosting the CEO Spring Reset Experience as a time-scaling strategist, along with Laura Nazer, a business mindset coach, and Tracy Hoff, a business organization coach. Over 3 days together, we'll walk through resetting each of these 3 areas together, one step at a time. And no worry, there's not judgment on how bad it's gotten over time. So right now, hit pause and go to redeemhertime.com/reset to grab your seat, or click the link in the show notes. This 3-day guided experience by 3 experts is free, but the cost of letting that clutter sit there is probably more than you want to pay. More on that in next week's episode. Because before we can reset something, we first have to recognize it. There's a verse that's been on my mind since I've been preparing for this conversation. 1 Corinthians 14:33 says, "For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace." Now, in context, this verse is talking about order within the church, in order for worship to be focused in the right place. And since we just finished a series on workship, where our work is our worship, this need for order also applies in order to focus on the work He's given us to do for His glory. And even more than that, this principle reveals something important about God's nature and how He created us to reflect that. You see, God's design reflects order, clarity, and peace. And when things become disordered, well, focus gets distracted and peace tends to disappear. That's why, as Christian business owners, we often talk here on the Redeem Her Time podcast about stewardship. Stewarding our gifts, stewarding our calling, stewarding the opportunities God places in front of us. It all comes down to stewarding our time. But part of stewardship is also learning to remove the things that create unnecessary friction and distraction. And clutter is one of the biggest sources of friction in a growing business. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because growth naturally creates complexity. More ideas, more opportunities, more systems, more responsibilities, more to-dos. And if you're not careful, that complexity slowly turns into clutter, which is why it's helpful to pause every once in a while and ask, where might clutter be quietly building in my business? So whether you're feeling a little or a lot cluttered right now, let's look at the 3 places it often shows up and do a little assessment. So grab your CEO journal because you may want to write some things down. All right, area number 1, calendar clutter. The first place that clutter shows up is in your calendar. Calendar clutter happens when your schedule becomes packed with activity, but not necessarily aligned with your priorities and your ROTI, the return on time invested that you want. Your days are full, but your weeks might feel reactive. Maybe you're squeezing business work into the margins of everything else. Maybe you said yes to meetings, opportunities, collaborations, or projects, and slowly you're watching your schedule fill up. And before you realize it, your calendar is full of motion, but not always forward progress. And here's the tricky part. A cluttered calendar doesn't just steal time. It steals intention and focus. You begin the day reacting instead of leading. Instead of stepping into your role as the CEO of your business, you start feeling more like the manager of endless tasks. And over time, that creates frustration because you're working, but the results don't seem to match the effort or the outcome. So let me ask you a few quick questions to help you assess whether calendar clutter might be building in your business. Are you ready? When you look at your upcoming week, do you feel clear about your top priorities? Or does everything on your schedule feel equally important? When you sit down to start your workday, do you already know what your most important work is? Or do you spend the first 10 minutes or 30 or 60 trying to figure out where to begin or where you last left off? And at the end of the day, do you feel like you moved meaningful work forward? Or do you feel like you've just been busy, but unsure of what actually mattered or happened? If some of those questions feel a little too familiar, that may be a sign of calendar clutter. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because over time our schedules slowly fill up. We have small tasks and extra meetings and requests from more people, and eventually the schedule we created to support our work starts quietly controlling our work instead. And when that happens, it becomes very difficult to steward our time with clarity and purpose. That's why it's so essential to answer the question, what is it time for, before the day, or better yet, the week starts. And no worries, I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step to simplify your schedule, align your priorities, and order your week at the Spring CEO Reset experience. So be sure to grab your seat at redeemhertime.com/reset. Imagine walking into Q2 with a clear, streamlined calendar that ensures every hour is focused on high-impact CEO work, including not working at all. No more scattered tasks or wasted time. All right, the second place that clutter shows up is a little less visible, mindset clutter. It's in our thoughts. Mindset clutter happens when your brain is holding too many open loops. Decisions you haven't made yet, ideas you haven't organized yet, projects you know you should move forward but haven't quite figured out how. It's like having a browser with 47 tabs open at once. You guys know my pet peeve about tabs. And they're all quietly running in the background. You might be trying to finish client work, but part of your brain is thinking about marketing. Another part is thinking about content you should create. Another part's wondering whether you should launch something new. Another part's replaying a decision you made yesterday. And before long, your brain feels tired, even if you haven't been working that long. So let me ask you a few questions in this category of mindset clutter. When you sit down to work, does your mind feel focused or does it feel a little scattered? Do you find yourself replaying decisions, wondering if you chose the right thing? Do you jump between ideas or projects because you suddenly remember something else you should be doing? Do you feel like your brain is carrying your entire business inside of it? If so, you might be experiencing mindset clutter. And mindset clutter can be incredibly draining because your brain was never designed to carry every idea, every decision, and every responsibility internally. When your thoughts are cluttered, even simple decisions feel harder, and that slows down your momentum. So the real question underneath all of this is, what are you thinking? Because the thoughts that you allow to run in the background of your business will quietly shape the way you lead it. Are your thoughts helping you move forward with clarity and confidence? Or are they cluttered with second guessing, overthinking, and mental noise that keeps pulling your attention in 10 different directions? Are you leading your business from a place of alignment with the vision God has given you? Or from a place of pressure of everything you think you should be doing? Because when those thoughts are cluttered, your focus is going to get scattered. And when your focus is scattered, it becomes very difficult to lead your business like a CEO. Which is exactly why on day 2 of the CEO Spring Reset experience, Laura is going to help you do a CEO mindset reset. So if you've got that kind of clutter building up, be sure to grab your spot at redeemhertime.com/reset. And together, she'll help you simplify your thoughts, align your vision, and bring order back to your focus. You're going to learn how to replace limiting beliefs and mindset clutter so you can confidently lead your business into Q2 in a way that reflects your God-given purpose and priorities. All right, area number 3 is digital clutter. Your inbox, your files, your systems, your tools. I get it. Many businesses start very simply, a couple folders, a few tools, maybe one main platform. But as your business grows, things get added. Another tool, another document, another folder, until eventually your digital world becomes harder to navigate than it needs to be. So let me ask you a few diagnostic questions here. When you open your inbox, do you feel clear about what needs your attention? Or do you feel a little sense of dread? Do you ever spend time searching for documents you know you created, but you can't seem to get your hands on them? Do you have files spread across multiple places, your desktop, your download folder, your Google Drive, maybe even a few different platforms? Are there tools or systems you're paying for, but not fully using? And when you sit down to work digitally, does your workspace help you focus, or does it add to the noise? If some of those questions felt familiar, then digital clutter might be quietly building in your business. And the challenge with digital clutter is that it steals time in tiny pieces. A few minutes searching for something, a few minutes switching between tools, a few minutes trying to remember where something lives. But over time, those minutes add up, and that friction slowly drains your focus and your momentum. So let me leave you with one simple question for this area. What are you storing? Not just in your folders, but in all those digital spaces that hold your business. Because everything you store digitally either creates clarity or friction. It either supports your work or it quietly slows it down. And that's exactly why on day 3 of the CEO Spring Reset Experience, we're going to focus on doing a CEO digital reset with professional organizer Tracy Hoth. So be sure to grab your free ticket at redeemhertime.com/reset. Because together, we'll simplify your systems, we'll align your platforms, and we're going to bring order to your inbox. So that way, you can walk into Q2 with a streamlined digital setup that keeps your business running smoothly and allows you to focus time on that high-impact CEO work that actually moves your business forward without the overwhelm. Now, here's the interesting thing about clutter. Clutter compounds. These 3 areas rarely stay separate. A cluttered calendar creates mental clutter. Mental clutter leads to digital disorganization. Digital disorganization creates more pressure on your time, and suddenly, everything just feels heavier than it should. You might even start wondering, why does my business feel harder lately? But often, the real issue isn't your strategy. It's that quiet buildup of clutter across the systems that shape how your business runs, right? Your time, your mindset, and your digital spaces. That's why it's time for a CEO Spring Reset in all 3 areas. And I want to pause here and say something really important. Clutter does not mean you're failing. In fact, clutter often shows up when business is growing. You've got new opportunities, new ideas, new team members, new responsibilities, and that growth creates complexity. That's why if we don't intentionally reset things along the way, that complexity is going to turn into clutter, which is why seasonal resets can be so powerful. Moments when we step back and ask, where do things need to be simplified again? Where do things need to be realigned? And where do we need to bring order back into the system? And that is exactly what we're going to be doing inside the CEO Spring Reset Experience. Over 3 days, we're going to walk through clearing these 3 exact areas of clutter together. On day 1, we're going to reset your calendar. On day 2, we're going to reset your mindset. And on day 3, we're going to reset your digital spaces. And each session is designed to be workshop style. So you're not just listening to great ideas, you're actually implementing. And if that sounds like exactly what your business needs right now, then be sure to grab your spot at redeemhertime.com/reset. But before we wrap up today, I want you to think about something. Recognizing clutter is important. But next week, we're going to talk about something even more significant, the cost of leaving that clutter in place. Because clutter doesn't just sit quietly in the background. Over time, it costs you in your clarity, your energy, your decision-making, and ultimately the results you're able to create. So next week, we're going to look at the real cost of kicking that clutter can down the road and why addressing it might be one of the most powerful stewardship decisions that you'll make in your business this year. Because clutter doesn't just take up space in your business. It quietly takes up the time, the clarity, and the peace that God intended you to lead with. That's why if today's Clutter Checkup helped you realize things might be a little more crowded than you thought, you're definitely going to want to join us for the CEO Spring Reset Experience. Grab your spot at redeemhertime.com/reset or click the link in the show notes. Because your time is a gift from God. And when you steward it well, you create space for the work He has truly given you to do. Okay, friend, we'll see you over inside the Redeem Her Time community. We'll talk more about this. Thanks for joining me for this episode. Until next time, remember, instead of chasing time on a clock, trying to control it, receive the gift of time from the one who truly holds it. Because as His daughter, you have time.